right? So the next part of it would have been the different types of audits. So if you have your slides, you could follow through, right? So you have, I mean, it's pretty simple. You have internal and external audits. Shannon seemed to be putting on back his mic every time I mute it, right? Right, yeah, so internal and external audits, right? So the idea here is that an internal audit is conducted by the employees in the company. And you do have advantages and disadvantages of this. And you have about maybe 3 in each here, right? So I think there could be a lot more once you understand it a bit, right? An internal audit is done by the employees of a company. And again, I'll talk in a bit from experience that the employees who do it, they normally assign them to a department that is not their own department, right? Or not even their own field, right? You have to really do this to know how complicated it is and how difficult it is, right? You could think of it as this. I think if your background is safety and you were doing an audit, an internal audit, right? Remember, internal audit is that from last week class, you'd have gotten your questions, you know the score, you know the date, you know the time that you're going to check a next department. And you go to see if what they're doing is what is on the company's policy and procedure. That's the purpose of an audit. So the second point is the organization can learn about itself. I think I probably will tell you a story here just to kind of give you an idea. I remember doing one of this for a company. And the girl that I was asking the questions to, she was a CSR, a customer service representative, somebody that deals with customers on the open counter then, right? And, you know, we asked her, you know, to list like your job steps, like how would you deal with a customer that came to purchase this, etc. And she went on fluently to answer all the questions or to describe it in such a way that, but she didn't have to stop like me and pause and think and say, but she said it really fluently. And, you know, you would think that she would have been dead correct because she said it so fluently, but the thing is she was dead wrong, right? And so the purpose of that audit though did reveal that what happened though was that when she came to work, no one did a handover with her. So she kind of learned the job from doing it on her own then, and her way was working, but it wasn't the way that it should have been on the procedure, right? So, I mean, the outcome of an audit, if you remember last week class, is not really to fire anybody, but it's to find those things that we call non-conformances and then to correct it anyway. So that was an idea of what it is like, I guess, an internal audit, right? I was a staff and she was a staff as well, but it's about the organization learning about itself. And what I was saying is that it have a lot of advantages and disadvantages to that. So I don't think I put all in the slides because I would have left these things open for like discussion anyway, right? So if you could, I could probably try that because this is really not too much of an advantage. You have other advantages though, like I guess an advantage of using an internal member of staff is that you save money. It is time, but I guess it's not, it may be on the employee's own time then, that's what I mentioned, time, that if the employee, let's say you were the safety, but you had to, like I said, do an audit of a CSR, right? Then you're doing it on company's time then, meaning that that is what you do for the day, right? Instead of doing, you know, risk assessments, you go and you audit somebody anyway, right? And what that does, so you do it on the employee's time, meaning that you save money in that you didn't have to hire an external auditor to get it done, right? So if you could just, I guess if I could grab the marker because I could probably just put a money symbol there for you, right? So some advantages is that it saves money, right? Because you are using internal persons, right? Another advantage is that the communication is better. People are more willing to talk to you because they know you, right? Because you are staff just like them. There's no fear there. So you have like better communication, you have better dialogue with the persons you're talking to because those are your fellow co-workers anyway, right? So you have better communication because you know, those are your normal employees anyway, right? Anybody could think of one again, an advantage of using an internal audit. And internal audits are often done, like I said, as a means to find those things that are going wrong before somebody on the outside spot it, right? An
So
internal
about
audit.
being cost effective?
Yeah, being cost effective. So we actually have that one on top there. So yeah, that's cost effective in terms of saving the money. So that's correct, right? So I wonder if I lost my marker. I think I did. Yeah, right. Yeah. So being cost effective, Shanna. So that is 100% correct. You know, but we have it on this slide already, right? So communication is better. Anybody could think of one using an internal.
To see if certain things working for the company.
Right. It's kind of like the last point. So that's correct. You kind of see a fault before anybody else see it, right? So you could see if things working and if it's not working before anybody else sees it. And I think a good way to think of an internal audit for those of us who are not working in safety is like an internal exam. You know, like you do an exam when we had exams for the school now, and nobody was really seeing that. Nibosh not seeing your mark, right? I mean, the only person seeing that was me and you,
What is your problem?
right? Shannon can probably turn off your mic a bit, right? So, yeah, so you can probably get your own fault, right? You can probably see your own weaknesses, your own fault, right? Before anybody else would have had an idea of what it was, right? That company can see their own fault without an external person seeing it. Let me just with Shannon once more, right? Yeah, Shannon, you could probably just turn on the mic when you have something to say, right? It seems to have some background thing there by you, right? So yeah, so those are three advantages of using internal auditors, and companies like it because of this one on top of that Shannon mentioned, in that it saves money, right? Companies like it for that because they don't have to pay anybody on the outside, right? So the disadvantages to this second point now, so the disadvantages of using your own people is that it can be subjective, right? It can be subjective, meaning that because it's your own employees, they may pick up for the company, right? Seeing that it's your own employees, it may be subjected to company's politics. I guess some ideas for this is that maybe they did find it, maybe they did find something that was at fault, but then managers say, you know, to hide it, right? Don't put it in the audit as a fault, right? Right? So, yeah, so don't put it as a fault, you know, so it may be subjected here to companies' politics. Just trying to do two things at the same time here. Right, yeah, right? So that is would be some disadvantages. And then this is a big disadvantage. Again, like I said, it is something that you come across if you're working in that the internal persons may not have the time to do a good job, right? Now you probably don't get that too much, but you can probably just imagine if you are working as a safety and you know, you would have planned to do an audit of the customer relation department, whatever have you, right? But the thing is, on that same day you had an accident, right? But you already made plans, you know, to meet, you know, 2 weeks ahead, a month ahead to do the audit. So then you kind of have to split your time because you are already the safety and there is an accident, but at the same time you would have made an appointment to do an internal audit. So you often find the time to do a good job is often difficult because the persons doing these internal audits have a job to do, right? Again, you could probably think of it because it's not just safeties that do it. You could probably think of an accountant, right? That's what they normally will do. Like the accountant will have to audit the safety department. But supposing the day right? Or the time that the safety would have been available to do this audit would have been maybe month end, right? Month end when the auditor, sorry, not the auditor, when the accountant has a lot of financial, data to input, payroll and salaries and stuff to see about, right? So oftentimes for the people who do it, it is really taxing. The people who do this, I know all of them. I know them in Massey, I know them in all the companies, everybody Atlantic. The number one thing the internal persons complain about is that they don't have time to do a good job, especially when you have other things to do on that same day, all right? Now you have some other disadvantages here. Maybe I can just list two on this side here, again, based on the time too. Anybody could think of another one. So the internal persons may be subjective. They may be subjected to companies' politics, meaning the manager tell them, don't record that accident because it will make us look bad. And then they may have their own job to do in addition to doing an audit, for another department. Anybody can think of another disadvantage of using your own employees? Well, I'll give you one, right? One that is a very serious one is that the internal persons are sometimes not competent. Remember, auditing is not really their field. They're not a trained auditor. The internal persons, as we said, may have been a safety advisor. The internal persons may have been an accountant. The internal persons may have been the facility manager. And that's what they know. They would have studied. The internal person may have been an IT specialist, but they're going to do an audit, but their background is IT, right? Or their background is safety, which is not really, you didn't really do an audit course there, right? So one of the main problems with this is that the internal auditors are not competent or they're not certified then. But the companies don't seem to mind because you often save the money anyway. So they're not competent in that when we did this, right, like when I did this for companies, and I mean did this, I used to have to train the auditors before. They had to train the internal persons before. And it would take days of training just to get them to understand what we spoke about last week, like planning it before, getting your questions before, getting the score, trying to figure out how much score, like if a question is worth 1 mark or 5 mark, it normally takes about 3 days just to plan it. And then you could only imagine, I wish I had some of you that were working, but I know Rashid is there online, so competent, right? So they are not competent, right? The point I was saying is that even if you get through all of that, like all of you get them to plan the question and the day and the time, and you have to call up, let's say I'm going to go back to that CSR example, call up somebody in CSR and tell them, remember tomorrow we had planned for 2 p.m. to have an audit. The other thing I realize is that because these persons are not, but they probably have 3 days of training, right, is that they are also timid, that they are also fearful to ask the questions, right? So you have a lot of disadvantages. The person really may not know how to ask a question. They may ask blaming questions. Blaming questions is like, why did you do that? And of course, all of that is part of a good auditor training. So they may look to ascribe then blame. They probably finish that word and put blame culture if you want in the accent of the questions, especially if maybe the person doing the audit is a supervisor and they were auditing a department that they knew had an accident. They may be then, on a witch hunt then trying to find out, like why did the accident happen? But again, not accident the right way because they have not really been trained, beside. And I say in 3 days, and some companies don't give three days. Some companies give 1 day for the training. And that's internal training really conducted by maybe an external person or maybe somebody in the company that has a knowledge of audits anyway, right? So a lot of disadvantage. The main one is that the person is not competent. The person may be asking blame type questions. And perhaps one more, this may seem a bit strange, but remember I said that it's one department asking another department. So even if you are in the safety department, you're not auditing the safety department, you probably will be auditing the accounting department. So the other big disadvantage is that, well, what does the safety person know about the accounting department, right? Or what does the safety person know about the IT department? Imagine if you were safety and you had to audit IT. And likewise, if the person was IT How do they even know how to ask a good question about a risk assessment? How do they even know what to look at in a risk assessment to come up with a fault? So a big disadvantage is that they are not
Sir,
familiar. They are not
sir,
familiar. Yeah,
what about victimization? Because we won yesterday, we do our drug test, right? On
yeah,
work, and there was asking why it is the people from admin like the general manager and why we don't bring them for drug tests. Only the people them in the
yeah.
department doing drug tests on. So
Yes,
all
that's
of us sudden
also
we started
true.
bring one or two ladies from admin to
Yeah,
make it look like we bringing people in the higher heads now.
yeah,
We
yeah.
giving them,
So
we now started giving them drug tests. So it looking like a victimization.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that we pick it.
yes, yeah. I
Well, I don't
agree.
believe that was a reference, but when I say victimization with
Yeah,
the disadvantage,
yeah.
if it do an
More like
internal audit,
favoritism. Yeah,
yeah, if it do an
yeah.
internal audit, people might they might look to discriminate you because you're
Yes,
doing
they
an
do.
internal audit
Yeah,
with your co-workers, with
yeah.
people in the same company.
Yeah,
So
so
they,
I can actually think about
yeah.
two disadvantages again. I mean, even talking from experience, as Shannon mentioned, that I kind of bring up some memories there. That you know, of course, every company has bacchanal. You know, every company has bacchanal. So imagine if you go to audit a company, sorry, a department that the person in that department, you and them wasn't getting along. You know, so it does create a bit of conflict there because it's more internal. It's kind of like I want to. I mean, I think some of you all know what I'm talking about. Shannon working, of course, but again, if you're not working, I guess you could probably think of it as a family, right? That if you had to go and question your own family members, I mean, imagine the things they would say about you anyway. At the end of that, right? They can say that she didn't know what she was doing, he didn't know what he was doing, where he get these questions from. So it does create a bit of internal rift because the person auditing you is somebody in your company, and imagine if it was facilities, right? I say the word facilities, but you know, facilities really mean it's the custodian. Supposing it's the custodian that had to go and audit a manager, right? Imagine what the manager would be thinking. Well, where is, you know, like who do you think he is? I mean, Shadrack trained him, yes, but what business he have in asking me about, you know, what happened last month or whatever have you. So there's a lot of internal rift when you do these internal audits. So I just listed about 4 more there, and I'm sure that Shannon point could go down as another one, which is just victimization altogether. I think conflict and victimization is two separate things. So you can think of this and see that internal audits have advantages and disadvantages, right? So folks, I need to move on. I'm just looking at the time there. So the other slide, having it. Hopefully you got some of these little notes down. I'm going to clear all of that, but again, we are recording it. So I guess you could probably get it once you have a flash drive, right? So I'm moving to the other slide there. Just look at this back, right? So the other one is very similar to this one. It's the advantages and disadvantages of an external auditor, right? So the external auditor now, and I think that is almost the last slide, right? So that will take us till, I guess, 9:45, right? So the external auditor will be somebody like me, I guess, right? Or a company hire a competent person to actually come in, and we have some of the advantages and disadvantages of that. So the advantages of an external auditor is that they will be more objective, meaning that on the last point we just said that this person is not really working for the company. So just to say that this is that we have no business there, so we are not afraid of saying things as it is. You know, like a company, in terms of the internal auditor may be subjected to company's politics. An external auditor is not subjected to the company's politics. We come in, they pay us a price, we say as it is, and we leave, right? So if I could just squeeze in one story here. I remember doing one of this company in the Atlantic, you know, the Point Lisas energy industry there, right? I won't call the name of the company. And just a long story short, looking through somebody's resume, the person was like a HSC manager, and the company was paying, and this was a lady, by the way, paying her the salary of an HSC manager because, you know, she said she had the NIBOSH and stuff. Of course, in an audit, you know, the auditors look at documents. One of the documents we look at would be things like risk assessments, but I guess also things like your resume to see that you are qualified. And when I looked at the resume, I didn't do this on purpose. I probably regret doing it afterwards, which is why I kind of remember it. But when I looked at the documents, I realized the person only had the project, right? The person only had the NIBOSH level, not the level 3, but the GC3 now, which is, this was about 10 years ago anyway, right? So the person only had the project. So, I think the comment I made was that the person doesn't have the full NIBOSH certificate. And then it became like an open can of worms then, where the company thought that the person had it, and they were not even aware that the NIBOSH certificate was actually more than one certificate. I think they felt as if you had one meant you had all, but it wasn't the case, right? Remember, I guess I would probably say back then that every unit you actually do, you'd have gotten a certificate for it. The end result is that the person was demoted down the chain then, and had a decrease in salary at the same time. I'm saying that to say that I guess somebody may have noticed that before, but nobody was brave enough to say it, right? So again, that's the objective view of an auditor, right? And I could give you more stories. I'll just tell you, I had one where somebody was actually fired in that we did actually find a fake NIBOSH certificate in that one, right? So advantages that the person will give you their honest view. I mean, the external person is not really working for you. Another advantage is that the external person would be a specialist. So unlike the internal person, you can probably say that this person is a professional, this person is trained in, this person would have had a degree. Where did that marker go, right? This person would have like a degree and years of experience in auditing itself, right? Or in that specialist field, right? So this person is not your normal accountant doing a safety, audit, or the normal safety, doing an IT audit anyway, but this person would have had a degree, right? Didn't come out too well there, right? So the person is just more or less a trained person, a qualified person. The person is normally called a professional, right? This point here, if you could probably add to this point means that they will be benchmarking you against like an international best practice. Try to draw the world for that, right? So the world, right? The person will be benchmarking you against, that looks like the world, right? Against like a global best practice then, as opposed to just made up questions. One of the big advantage of an external auditor is that they didn't have to go and make up too much of questions, but we will be using like international questions or questions that everybody would ask, right? So the benchmarking is not against the company's internal questions, but it's against, if you remember that lesson, it's against then like ISO 45001. It's against those standards then. It's against, in Trinidad here, the STO questions, which are about 100 and something questions. So we didn't have to make it up, nor did we even put the mark scheme for it. These things were done already on a global scale. So we are just following that for an external audit, right? So some further advantages, if I could put one in this side here, is that, I should have probably take up that one, right? I guess a further advantage is that, I'm gonna scratch this one, right? Is that the external person would have the time, because that's what they are being paid for, right? They don't have anything to do. They would have been paid, to come and do an external audit. So they can take the whole day. They can take 3 days. They can take, in the case of STO takes about 5 days, right? So they can take the time. They don't have anything else to do. That is their job, right? To come and do an external audit, right? Let me see, right? I think we have Rashid. Let me just check the participants. Yeah, so I know we have Rashid here. So I know he would have done some of these. And again, those younger ones amongst us, this is something that has a lot of money then in terms of the safety field. If anybody, some of you all have degrees already and stuff, right? But this is something that has a lot of monies in it, for safety persons or for budding safety persons anyway, right? That once you get qualified with a degree, preferably I would want to suggest, the one that the will suggest, the NEBOSH level 6, you can get in to be an auditor, right? And once you are good at it, it's not very hard, right? For those who know, as I mentioned before, these questions are already set and the marks are already set too. So basically, 20 or the 20 for one question. You just ask any questions and recording the mark, right? So this could be if anybody have, the interest of staying in safety. This is a quite good field, right? I mean, like, just to give you an idea, like a typical auditor may work for about, these two auditors work for about $38.50 a day, right? 3,800 and about $50 for the day, right? So that's just one day's pay, which could be like, 2 days, or you almost make like a month's salary there, right? And then if you assist in any company with store, hopefully, I know you're, like I said, younger in it, but I could only imagine where this could go. If you have your degree and you're competent, and you just ask the questions anyway, and you get into be an auditor. We have done these, companies have done these, and I would say in the past, right? Because of the viruses of companies have done, auditors have done auditing of companies for, close to $100,000 per company, right? So just to let you know that this is a good field. Safety does have, at least some knockdown benefits in terms of, finances at the same time, right? I'm gonna try to wrap this up here. So some advantages is that they'll have enough time, and I probably put maybe an advantage is that the auditors are well paid. I suppose that could be a good advantage anyway, right? So disadvantage is that the external auditor may be unfamiliar with the organization. And I think this is just takes some homework anyway if you're going to a company to kind of research the company anyway. Remember, they would be hiring an external person to come in, right? And you don't have to know everything about the company, but you do have to know something about the company anyway, right? So the person may be unfamiliar with the company that they are going to, right? And I guess I could use, because there is, I guess, is anybody as a wrong at the moment, right? I have, as I'll use myself, so like I have audited companies that I knew about and companies that I didn't know what they were doing, right? Being that there was one company, was like a data communication company, which was totally out of my field, right? So just had to do some homework to kind of know what they were doing anyway, right? But that's the idea, that if they hire you, and anybody here could be an auditor in years to come, it'll be a company that's totally, or it could be anyway, a company that you're not familiar with. However, if you wonder, well, if that's a disadvantage, I don't see it as a disadvantage. I see it as a learning experience. And at the same time, at the core of it, everything stays the same. The company must have a HSE policy. They must have had risk assessments. They must have had JSAs. They must have had accident reports. So the core of it stays the same anyway, right? Another big disadvantage is that because you are external, you could get communication barriers between the workforce and the auditor, and that is very common, right? There's often a fear of auditors, right? Especially somebody from the outside, right? There's often a fear of auditors. To me, you can't get away from that, right? As you all know that the school, in fact, right, Shadrack Safety Institute is, or not is, but often, right? Every 2 to 3 years, we see auditors from the accreditation council anyway. And, we often do very good on those audits anyway. But the thing is, and this is just, I guess, I guess the school, but again, I have done it for safety as well. And it doesn't matter if it's, ACTT or STO or ISO, there's always a fear of auditors, and what that fear does for some people, right? That fear creates a communication barrier, especially if you had now to go and talk to the auditor, but the auditor you heard was a real dread auditor, or this person, is, the chairman of this board and the chairman of that board, and you are like a humble employee going before that person. sometimes it does create a bit of fear. So this is just the way it is. If you're not too familiar with it, that you do get communication barriers. Again, a good one could be if the person was not, let's say, a Trinidadian, let's say the auditor that they got was from the US or from the UK, and they talk a little bit different or they dress a bit different, and you know, they look a little bit different. We Trinidadians tend to kind of cover a little bit, right? And you know, that may give a bit of communication barriers, and that you may not be answering what they're really asking you, because your business may be just to try to get out of the audit as fast as possible. They have requested you to come and talk, but your business can be, as you know, you couldn't care much, but to care about just getting the audit over with anyway. And that's not what we really want. We really want the person to talk and to open up in the audit anyway, right? So in the 1 minute I have here, because there is a question here. I don't know if you all could give this a try. If you have your PowerPoints, right? There's a question here, put it on the last slide. So this is from a past paper, give the meaning of the term health and safety audit. Maybe you all can do this for the week, right? I haven't been seeing much stuff from you all, but so it's 6 persons now. It was a bit more before. So give the meaning of the term health and safety audit and identify 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages of an external auditor carrying out a health and safety audit, right? So give this a try and probably shoot me an email with it. It's a simple question, shouldn't take me long to correct, but at least it'll get you back in the mode of exams anyway, right? So let me just stop the recording there and see if you all have any questions.